With just 4 days to go until Election Day, Senator Bernie Sanders, is giving a major boost to New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy as he seeks re-election. Sanders and Murphy rallied at Rutgers University last night. The senator championed Murphy as, quote, one of the most progressive governors in America, and applauded his efforts on issues like raising the minimum wage and expanding preschool and child care. Political reporter Adam Brewster joins me now with the very latest on this race. Well, they got great singing voices in New Jersey. So Bernie Sanders' visit comes just hours after President Biden announced his historic deal on the federal spending plans. Paid family leave will likely be left out of that deal, though. And I should remind people, it's not a done deal. It's still being negotiated. Sanders, though, gave some applause to Murphy for expanding that in his state, in New Jersey. I want to play some of what he had to say.
Right now in America, we are the only major country on earth not to guarantee paid family and medical leave. That means that moms and dads have to make a choice about whether they stay home with a sick kid or they lose their jobs. Governor, congratulations for passing paid family and medical leave.
So Bernie Sanders kind of like simultaneously critical of the negotiations happening in Washington, D.C., but then praising, some of the things that have happened in New Jersey. How did Sanders rally the crowd around the reeled back, scaled down bill and also Governor Murphy's plan for the state?
Bill, that new framework, he referred to it still as, the most consequential piece of legislation that, lawmakers in Washington are considering passing in modern history. So he is still speaking about it in positive terms. And you certainly heard him talk about things like the expansions for pre-K, to talk about the climate spending provisions that are in the bill. He still did mention later when he got to his remarks about the bill, some things about paid leave, things about lowering prescription drug prices, those things that are not currently in the bill. He didn't really go after Democrats per se for some of their infighting over the negotiations in this bill. Instead chose to say, hey, we haven't had any Republicans join us in this effort. Now that clip that you played just a moment ago about paid family leave, if you had, set up base camp in any town in Iowa or New Hampshire or Nevada a couple of years ago and just kind of waited a couple of weeks, odds are at some point you would have run into Senator Bernie Sanders and he would have rolled through and given a similar sort of spiel about paid leave. It felt especially impassioned last night after the, release of that framework, which did not include the paid family leave, and especially urgent plea from the senator and pointing out, that Governor Murphy expanded that during his first term in office in Jersey.
So, we've talked a lot about the race in Virginia because it's sort of razor thin and neck. But in this case, the polling really shows that Murphy is far ahead of his Republican competitor. Yet a lot of Democratic heavyweights have shown up. Senator Bernie Sanders, yes, but, also President Biden was there very recently with the First Lady. I'm sort of curious, why are these Democrats showing up to this race if Murphy, at least according to the polls, it looks like he has it in the bag, or maybe he doesn't.
And former President Obama was there just last weekend as well. It's sort of, the Murphy campaign has been saying, we're running this race like we're 10 points behind, right? Rather than polls that have shown him to be upwards of about 10 points ahead. And Senator Sanders last night, pointed out these elections are happening in a weird year, right? It is sort of the off year. Most of the country is not thinking about, voting in this upcoming cycle. The hyper-engaged voters who vote in every single election, whether it's just a local millage or a presidential election, they're still paying attention. But New Jersey and Virginia have these governor races in these off years. And the senator said, things can happen if our people don't show up and vote. And Governor Murphy has said the same thing when he's gone around. He told me, recently, we Democrats have a bigger team, but we need to get our team to show up to vote. There are about 1 million more registered Democrats than Republicans in New Jersey, so they do have some sort of statistical advantage. But, the governor and his campaign team know that it was only just a few years ago that New Jersey had a two-term Republican governor in Chris Christie. a Democrat has not been reelected in New Jersey since the late 1970s as governor. And typically when one party wins the White House, the other party has, for the first time, the other party has been able to take control of the governor's mansion. So the governor's team knows that they have these sort of trends in the past that are sort of working, against them or raising some flags, and have tried to take this race seriously. And it's a way to gin up enthusiasm, bring people into the fold who may not otherwise be attention. Real quickly, I met a woman as I was walking to the event last night who was saying how much she loves Bernie Sanders, and that's why she was going to the event. And she even gets nervous just talking about him when I was asking her why she likes him. And I said, well, what do you think of Phil Murphy? And she was like, he's okay. But she's planning to vote for him and was excited to see the senator, and this sort of made her feel a little bit better about casting her vote for Governor Murphy on Tuesday.
Yeah, it's just a little sort of personal interaction, but it's very telling. And it also reinforces why it's really good to have people like you on the ground talking to actual voters. So on the flip side, can we talk about Republican challenger Jack Ciarellis? How does his campaign compare?
So he's been running while Governor Murphy has, sort of to straddle this campaign job and also his day job of being governor of New Jersey. He's sort of held these bigger, more splashy events. Jack Ciarellis has been going around the state, sort of, barnstorming the state, holding many more retail stops, speaking to smaller audiences. But I was with him at a couple of stops yesterday in New Jersey. He showed up at a diner. Everyone there wanted to take pictures with him. It was an event that his campaign had advised and made public, so many people were there to see him. There were also just some folks there having breakfast who he said hello to. He was at, an American Legion Hall. Shortly after that, several dozen people showed up. I liken it to campaigning during the Iowa caucuses, and his people who are showing up to these events are very engaged, are very excited to vote for him. He got a lot of questions as he walked around the diner. Are you going to have mask mandates or vaccine mandates? He's been adamant about the fact that he believes people should get the vaccine, but that government shouldn't be requiring people to do so. So his campaign has been going around and sort of running, their strategy. He hasn't brought in too many national figures. RNC Chairwoman Ronna McDaniel was in New Jersey recently campaigning on behalf of Jack Ciarellis. But, for the most part, he's been just putting his head down, going around the state. He's held about 35 events from last Sunday through this Sunday on his calendar. A bit of a different strategy than what we've seen from Governor Murphy, who does have some more typical get out the vote stuff scheduled this weekend.
Interesting. Adam Brewster, thank you so much.
Thanks, Anne-Marie.
So you can follow the latest developments on the race by streaming CBSN New York. Just download the free CBS News app or head on over to cbsnews.com/live. There you can find all of our CBSN local streams.